Imagine that snarling guitar riff slicing through the air like a wildcat's claw, grabbing you by the throat and refusing to let go. Yeah, that's Cat Scratch Fever, the Ted Nugent banger that's been infecting rock fans since '77, turning mild-mannered listeners into howling maniacs ready to prowl the night. But here's the kicker that's got more twists than a feline in a yarn factory. This track didn't claw its way out of some booze-soaked jam session or a heartbroken ballad gone wrong. No, it sprang from a bizarre medical mix-up that Nugent stumbled into, blending real-life germs with enough raw lust to make your grandma blush, or maybe join the mosh pit. Stick around, because we're about to unpack the wild, wacky history behind Ted Nugent's Cat Scratch Fever, from its sneaky origins to the cultural chaos it unleashed, sprinkled with facts so obscure they'll have you scratching your head in disbelief. Let's rewind to the mid-'70s, when Ted Nugent was already a guitar-slinging force of nature, fresh off his Amboy Dukes days and bulldozing into solo stardom. Picture the Motor City madman, bow in hand from one of his infamous hunting trips, flipping through a dusty medical journal in 1975, because why not? The guy's got a brain as restless as his fingers on the fretboard. And bam, there it is, Cat Scratch Fever. Ted had never heard of this thing before. It sounded like some made-up malady from a bad sci-fi flick. Turns out, it's a legit bacterial infection, Bartonella henselae for the science nerds, passed on by a kitty's claw or bite, swelling up your lymph nodes like a bad hangover and potentially messing with your heart or brain if you're unlucky. But Ted? He files it away in his mental riff vault, thinking, that's got a ring to it, raw, primal, dangerous. Fast forward a bit, and he's got this killer three-tone blues scale melody bubbling up, harmonized in parallel fourths for that extra bite. He mashes the title with the tune, and suddenly, Cat Scratch Fever isn't about swollen glands anymore. It's a metaphor for something way steamier. Oh, we're talking lust on steroids, folks. The lyrics. Pure Nugent bravado, dripping with innuendo that'll make you chuckle or cringe, depending on your tolerance for '70s rock excess. Take the opener. Well, I don't know where they come from, but they sure do come. I hope they're coming for me. Classic Ted, painting a picture of mysterious cats slinking in from the shadows. And yeah, we're not talking tabbies here. These are women, drawn to his magnetic machismo like moths to a flame, or more accurately, like felines in heat to a scratching post. Then comes the gem. I make the pussy purr with the stroke of my hand, they know they're getting it from me. Boom, zero subtlety. Pussy, as in cat, sure. But wink wink, it's the ultimate double entendre, rooting back to slang that's been around since Shakespeare, but cranked to 11 in rock lingo. Ted himself boiled it down in interviews. It's about pussy. Straight up no chaser. But here's a quirky fact that adds layers to the laugh. Some fans mishear lines like bite my fez instead of make my bed, turning the whole thing into a surreal, hat-chewing fever dream. Imagine Ted on stage belting that out. What if it was about deranged milliners instead? We'd have a whole genre of haberdashery rock, with bands like the Mad Hatters scratching out hits about fedoras gone feral. But let's not get ahead. The birth of this beast was just the spark. Nugent was knee-deep in his solo career, and Cat Scratch Fever became the title track for his third album, dropping in May 1977 on Epic Records. This wasn't just another record. It was Ted, stepping up as lead vocalist for the first time on a full LP, after relying on Derek St. Holmes for his debut, and even Meatloaf on Free For All. Why the switch? Why? Ted figured if he sang it himself, he'd hog more spotlight, commanding the stage like a lion tamer with a Gibson Birdland. The album sessions were a whirlwind at CBS Recording Studios in New York and Pampa Studios in Michigan, with producers Tom Werman and Cliff Davies keeping the chaos in check. Band lineup? Ted on guitar and vocals, Rob Grange on bass, Cliff Davies on drums, and St. Holmes adding backup vocals and rhythm guitar, though he'd bail soon after, citing creative clashes. Launch drama. Oh, plenty. The album hit shelves amid Nugent's relentless touring, where he'd show up in loincloths, swinging from vines like a rock and roll Tarzan, firing arrows into amps for effect. But behind the scenes, there was label pressure to deliver a hit after Free for All underperformed. Ted doubled down, infusing the record with tracks like Wang Dang Sweet Poontang and Death by Misadventure. But Cat Scratch Fever was the claw that hooked him. And hook it did. The single clawed its way to number 30 on the Billboard Hot 100, number 37 in Canada, becoming Nugent's biggest chart smash and propelling the album to double platinum. But the real drama unfolded on the road. Ted's live shows turned Cat Scratch Fever into a feral ritual. Fans howling along, air guitaring that iconic riff like it was a religious experience. One obscure nugget. During the 77 tour, Ted would sometimes dedicate it to all the wildcats out there, sparking mini riots of groupies rushing the stage, security scrambling like they'd been scratched themselves. What if one of those fans was an actual veterinarian? Picture the confusion. Wait, is this about lymphadenopathy or libido? Hilarious mishaps aside, the song's ascent wasn't without bumps. Critics panned it as juvenile. Rolling Stone called it adolescent fantasy fodder. But Ted fired back in his trademark style. If you don't like it, go hug a tree. Satirical swipe? Absolutely. In a world of disco dominating the charts, Nugent was the anti-hero, thumbing his nose at polyester suits while cranking out hard rock that made you feel alive, or at least itchy in all the right places. As Cat Scratch Fever roared into legend status, it embedded itself in the rock pantheon like a splinter you can't ignore. By '79, Ted was telling NME he didn't sweat the lyrics' depth. I don't think a whole lot of people sit down and contemplate my lyrics. But fans did, dissecting every purr and scratch. The phrase Cat Scratch Fever entered pop lexicon, blending the real disease with rock mythology. Doctors even reported a spike in awareness. Suddenly, every cat owner with a bump was paranoid thanks to Ted's inadvertent PSA. But the ascent really peaked with its media takeover. This tune's popped up everywhere, from The Simpsons, where Homer belts it during a political rant, to American Dad, sinking it with gun-toting antics. Movies? It's in private parts for Howard Stern's Wild Ride, Lords of Dogtown, soundtracking skate rebellions, even Garfield, A Tale of Two Kitties, twisting it literally for cartoon cats. Talk about ironic. Obscure tribute. In 2013's German film Dampfnudel Blues, it scores a crime scene proving Ted's fever crosses oceans. And VH1? They crowned it the 32nd best hard rock song ever in 2009, right up there with Zepp and Sabbath. Ted's response? Probably a chuckle and a bow shot into the air. But the quirky aftermath? That's where the wackiness amps up. Enter the covers. First, Pantera's 1999 version for the Detroit Rock City soundtrack, hitting number 40 on mainstream rock. Ted initially roasted it. Exceedingly white, no soul, no balls, no feel, Caucasian all the way. Ouch, like a cat fight in the alley. But later he softened, praising the band after Dimebag Darrell's tragic death, calling it a heartbreaker. Other tributes? Motorhead growled through it on 1992's March Die, Lemmy adding gravelly grit that'd make Ted nod approvingly. The Replacements snuck it onto 1984's Let It Be as a hidden track, punking it up with sloppy charm. Then there's the full-blown tribute album in 2001, Cat Scratch Fever, a tribute to Ted Nugent, featuring all-stars like Ozzy's Jakey Lee and Guns N' Roses DJ Ashba reworking classics. Fan stories add the spice. One devotee claims the song inspired his tattoo of a claw-marked guitar, only to get actual cat scratch disease months later. Karma or coincidence? What if Ted toured with veterinarians as openers, handing out antibiotics instead of picks? Absurd, sure, but it'd be the ultimate rock remedy show. The ripple effects? Cat Scratch Fever didn't just rock the charts. It clawed into culture, influencing everything from slang to soundtracks. Phrases like "making the pussy purr" became shorthand for swagger in dive bars worldwide, while the real disease got a weird fame boost. Search cat scratch fever symptoms today, and Ted's mug pops up alongside medical diagrams. It spawned parodies, like in Nip Tuck, where it underscores plastic surgery gone wild, or Beer for My Horses, with Toby Keith nodding to Nugent's outlaw vibe. Even stage adaptations whisper, though no full musical yet, community theatres have woven it into rock reviews, with actors in cat ears hamming up the lyrics for laughs. Obscure fact: Ted once joked in a radio spot that if he'd known about the disease's rarity, affecting maybe 22,000 Americans yearly, he'd have called it dog bite blues instead, but nah, cats have that sly edge. And the enduring impact? It's Ted's signature, still shredding live sets in 2024, like at the York State Fair where he closed with it, fans chanting like a feverish choir. In a world of auto-tuned pop, this song's a reminder of raw, unfiltered rock, gritty, urgent, and unapologetic. So there you have it, the untamed tale of Ted Nugent's cat scratch fever. From medical journal mishap to multi-platinum mayhem, packed with meanings that scratch the surface of lust and lore. If this history got your blood pumping, smash that like button like Ted smashing a riff, subscribe for more deep dives into rock's wild underbelly, and drop a comment. What's your craziest Nugent story? Until next time, keep the fever alive, stay scratchy, my friends.